Needlepoint, the record collector podcast with Paul Lester and Daryl Easlea.
Hello, I'm Paul Lester, editor of Record Collector, Britain's oldest, longest enduring music monthly.
And my name is Daryl Easlea, and I too work for Record Collector, and I'm the editor of the Rare Record Price Guide.
And this is our podcast Needlepoint, where we look at rock's rich tapestry, as Julie Birchall once called it, through the prism of the latest issue of our magazine.
And by it being called Needlepoint, we take it like a record itself. We look at the lead feature first, which you could say is the magnum opus on side one, and then we look at various tracks on the other side, and sometimes we might even look at the bonus single just for you.
And it's a special edition, this one, isn't it? Because it's our Christmas issue, even though it's still, what is it? Oh, well, it's early December.
Oh no, I think now it is Christmas.
Do you think it's well underway? But we've really kicked it off in fine style with this edition of Record Collector, where we've got a chap called Bob Geldof, none other than Knight of the Realm. He is editing, or guest editing, the issue. He did quite a lot of work, actually. I have to hand it to him. Not only does he talk us through his record collection, but he proffers the editor's letter. He edits features on 10cc versus Queen, Christmas singles, and landmark 7-inch records of the 1970s. His imprimatur is on many, many pages, up to and including an article on producer Phil Wainman at the back of the magazine, the chap that produced records by The Sweet, but also I Don't Like Mondays by the Boomtown Rats. It's a real doorstopper of an issue. 164 pages. That might be a technical thing that's very industry and jargon-esque and jargon.
I think people can count pages.
People know that 164 pages is a lot more than some of our rival publications that are probably this month only coming in at around the 124 mark.
But never mind the quality, feel the width. Feel the width here. And of course, we have our calendar. The 2026 calendar, yes, as well as our free gift to you, our wonderful readers and listeners. And
we need to point out that the calendar is a 2026 calendar, obviously, but it actually celebrates the music of 1981 because we'd like to confuse and confound. It's such a great year.
It was, and I think because of its Record Collector's 45th anniversary in 79, we look back 45 years there, and of course it was very appealing to do 45s from that time. So 1980 was the first year Record Collector went as a standalone, because originally it was by the Beatles magazine, and then 81 I just thought that was when we started hitting our stride. So I mean, I could find an excuse to edit every calendar now, and for time in memoriam, 45 years time I'll be looking back at the records of 2025 lovingly, but it's a very compelling way to do it, because I think you realise just how many things come out at the same time.
Well, 1981, I mean, that's probably, there are more good records per square millimetre of vinyl that year than arguably any other year, and I would say that because I happen to love that year. And I know people usually argue for the merits of 65 and 66 and possibly 76 if you happen to be that way inclined, and 77. But 81 really is just, there were no bad records. Even the bad records were good.
Even the bad records were good. And I always cite the Tweets, the Birdie song. Even that as a bad record was tremendous.
Yeah. You've got to have the room for a bit of Birdie song. You know, it makes the great record sound even more fantastic, doesn't it? If the Birdie song is alongside Tears Are Not Enough and favourite shirts and all that kind of stuff.
It was always the bridge to the record you really liked. It was when you could go and make a cup of tea, or, you know, whatever you did. I don't think I was making cups of tea when I was 15.
And actually, you could probably argue that in that context, the Birdie song sounds positively avant-garde. You know, it's alongside the Associates and records like that. And you just think, hold on, is that it's the Birdie song, right? But it could have been fourth draw down worthy material.
Well, I think one of my mates tried to start a rumour that it was actually the Residents.
Oh, there you go. That's right. That's what I was trying to say. Yeah.
So no, please do that. And the other great record from that year as well. We'll come back to this fabulous Bob Geldof issue. But Joe Dulce, Musical Theatre, Shut Up Your Face. I mean, an Australian pretending to be Italian, keeping the high concept pomp.
Where are we at, though, with the bluffs and double bluffs? Are we now at the point where we're saying, actually, I preferred that to Ultravox?
Oh, no, I really did prefer that to Ultravox. I mean, and I've just reviewed recently the collection, and you realise the grandeur, the haughty grandeur,
the magniloquence
of the boys at that point, and the sideys and the flouncing. I mean,
the
they did
pomp and
flounce.
circumstance.
But I have to, and I adored Vienna when I first heard it. It was one of those great. I bought the album and I thought, oh, this is all right. Played it a bit and then sort of forgot about it a bit. And then I saw Vienna. I think it was on the Old Grey Whistle Test, and it was like, my God, what's this? And of course, it was buried, I think, on side 2 or something of the original album. And then that was it. I couldn't
quite
stop.
a journey to have travelled from Slick Forever and Ever, 1976 January. One of the sort of most impressive journeys ever undertaken by a pop musician.
And of course, Slick, Kenny Hislop on drums, who stepped in briefly with Simple Minds, but then of course went on to found Set the Tone.
Set the Tone, Get Out of London, was that then?
No, Get Out of London was Interferon.
Interferon. Oh, okay.
Dance Sucker.
Oh, wow.
Sucker.
You're going to be telling me about Hey Elastica in a minute.
Oh, well, I saw Hey Elastica supporting Simple Minds after his left. I think Mel Gaynor had just joined. You had that brief interregnum with, what's his name, Mel Ogletree. No, someone Ogletree, who came from Cafe Jack. Because what happened, what's his name? The guy who'd been there at the start, was it Brian? Drummers never usually called Brian, are they? Or no, you think they're always called Brian.
Yeah.
He left, and then in came, I think, Hislop, then Mike Ogletree, and then, of course, Mel Gaynor came in to add that thump, which we don't know. So I saw Hey Elastica at the Lyceum supporting Simple Minds, and that gig, right, I was so thin, I was mistaken, and I was wearing a jumper like what people would call a Christmas jumper now, but it was a ski jumper from C&A. On the fire escape exit out of the Lyceum, someone thought I was Andy McCluskey.
Oh, very good. That's pretty good. Okay, I did get very briefly, someone said, oh, that looks like you, when they saw the cover of The Enemy, October 1981. David Sylvian, by the way. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. It's what they said. I didn't say it to them.
Because I think I've seen some vague picture of you when you had some sort of booth.
I did have. I had the sort of the hair that was.
I think our listeners need to have I think they're making a portrait of that, but those who watch us on YouTube should actually see that.
Like I said, as though to confirm that kind of predilection for that sort of look, I was 4 years beyond that. 1981. I happened to find myself teaching Spanish in a Sheffield Comprehensive School, where several of the pupils said, "Sir, you look like him from Aha, Mags." That was a terrible accent, but
oh well, yeah. There you go. At least they didn't say pal.
They didn't.
I'm not.
But he wrote the songs.
I'm not taking the mickey out of foreign accents and foreign names.
No.
Now, tell me. First of all, just before we come to the issue, you might just ask me why I'm dressed like this.
Why are you dressed like that? You got a bow tie on. I mean, you look like, who was it that had a brief? Oh, actually, Nick Hayward had a brief bow tie period, didn't he?
Yeah. Oh, he did have a brief bow tie. Well, bow ties in pop discuss.
Yes.
But I'm actually, because today, or the day of recording it, we're in early December. It's 45 years to the day that I saw Talking Heads at Odeon.
Right.
Hence
the bow tie. Right.
And I just can't, because I have the poster on my stairs from it, where you used to buy, sometimes you went to a post gig and they were selling the posters outside, and it's 45 years have passed, and it's just feels like about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it's 45. That's 44 years next year since you and I both, separately though, because we didn't know each other then, attended the ABC gig at Hammersmith Odeon.
Yeah.
September, October 82.
November 82, actually.
Was it November? Oh, blimey, okay.
22nd and 23rd. I still have my ticket somewhere. I was in the balcony, row A.
Oh, you should do me an I Was There. We've got a section on the letters page of Record Collector called I Was There. I'd like to see.
My life is an I Was There, Paul. You know.
So anyway, we've got this fantastic issue.
You just edited this amazing thing, Paul. I mean, how did you do it?
Well, I must admit, it was quite a stressful one. I have to say, there was so much in it. Not just getting the Geldof thing right, and the calendar obviously had to be done, but there's a pretty monumental face-off between 10cc circa I'm Not in Love and the Queen of Bohemian Rhapsody. That went over many, many pages, and actually it was a very interesting piece, which ultimately has proven to be the seismic 7-inch single from 1975, one from the summer, one from the winter, Christmas, in fact. So that's good. The History of Christmas, #1 by Chris Roberts, great fun.
Yep.
From Bohemian Rhapsody to Band-Aid and beyond. And then there's a contrasting piece by David Stubbs on the seismic singles of the 70s, where we choose the 20 records. We didn't go any more than 20 because we thought we wanted to get into a bit of detail. 20 records that really impacted on pop and set it sailing onto brand new uncharted waters.
Well, it was brilliant fun doing that because you and I selected the 20, and it was like, we could have had 220.
Yeah, we had to really be tight in terms of defining our terms.
And we tried to look at the things like what was a sort of seismic shift in sound when you heard, you thought that, or attitude. So obviously Anarchy in the UK had to be in there. But also records, and we come back to Geldof, things which have now sort of been either taken for granted or fallen off the radar. Things like I Don't Like Mondays. But, being a kid at that time when you'd saw that, it was just absolutely dropped down. Oh my goodness, this is what an event this record is.
Jaw-dropping releases. So I think they all sort of fit that criteria. Freeze All Right Now from May 1970. I believe that when you first would have heard that, you would have been mouth agape. Certainly Roxy Music's Virginia Plain could withstand having that accolade presented to it. David Essex's Rock On. Startling piece of music by Jeff Wayne.
And I think that's one that tends to get written out a bit. But hearing that, the way he, that got that echo on the bass. I mean, he was applying sort of dub techniques to make that record. And it sounds so apart from, it still sounds apart from other records and certainly from the rest of David Essex's career.
Well, it's that dynamite combination. It's avant-garde ambition meets commercial achievement.
Number one in America, of course.
Got #1 in America. There are not that many records that strange that have scaled the heights, the dizzy heights of #1 in the States, or even indeed in Britain.
And I think it chimed in perfectly, that revival that began in the 70s of the 50s, where, people were old enough to look back.
When you get the comical version of it with Shawadi Wadi, and I suppose Shannon and I were slightly more serious, but
Shannon and I sort of started it in America, Shawadi Wadi here, darts, darts afterwards. But I think it was that thing in America, American Graffiti really took it forward. And I think Rock On came out around the same time, and it was, a brilliant celebration of people's youth.
What prompted this exposition? It was outside, something like a child screaming.
Didn't it?
The thing is, I think it's my child as well, but there is a parent involved in it.
Are you sure?
Yeah. Mrs. Lester is somewhere in the background. It was prompted by 10cc's I'm Not in Love and Bohemian Rhapsody by Queen, because they were so jaw-droppingly astonishing in terms of structure and arrangement and production and vocal and everything, and visuals as well in the case of Queen. But so it prompted us to decide what were the other 18. If they were the two of the most standout landmark pioneering singles of the 70s, what were the other 18? So we've told you a few of them so far, like David Essex and Roxy Music, but Bee Gees' Jive Talking. Certainly, I remember that in real time hearing that, thinking, what is that? I mean, not in a kind of a Kraftwerk, what is that way, but just I've never heard that before. It's not Philly soul. Disco hadn't been invented yet. I didn't know what it was.
Well, I think also it was a case of, hold on, aren't the Bee Gees that 60s group that sang about...
Well, that's right, yeah.
Because they had fallen from favour. Amazing. Really, really great tracks. So that's another lovely facet of our new magazine.
It does. It reminds you that in a way the history of music isn't just a history of the artists, it's a history of the producers behind the scenes. In the case of the Bee Gees, Arif Mardin and Jeff Wayne, in the case of the aforementioned Rock On, and so on and so forth. But yeah, this is just one small sample of some of the delights waiting in store for you. Do you know one of the great things about the Christmas edition of your favourite rock magazine, for me, used to be the list of the albums of the year that year, and it would provide you with a shopping list of records that you would then go out and buy and spend the next 12 months trying to accumulate. I mean, they was absolutely the Bible to me. 1970 78, 79, 80 and 81 NME Christmas editions were absolutely biblical. Of course, 79 would have been a classic for you because it's got Talking Heads, Fear of Music at number one,
Yeah, very much so.
Pills, Metal Box at 2, and Joy Division at 3, so on and so forth. But yeah, we've got a similar list in this edition of the magazine. The albums of the year for 2025. It would be interesting to look back in years to come, and people will have they will perhaps debate the question: was it a classic year? Was it as much of a standout classic year as some of the years we've been talking about so
Well,
far?
I mean, what is fascinating is that we didn't. I think we were one of the few magazines that didn't put Pulp More at number one.
Pulp and Suede were duking out. We steamed in.
We had it at number two. I mean,
With Geese.
at number one, and obviously it was the year of Geese. No one knew about. I mean, obviously you probably did, and the hardcore did, but Cameron Winter and Grease came along out of nowhere.
Yes.
Geese. Came out. That's a duck. Came out of nowhere, and that really delighted a lot of people. And also, you look at these fabulous like Suede and Pulp. You know, two war horses of the scene, still creating tremendous sort of music for them, and that great way of growing old. With great grace, and not sort of just doing tribute records, but doing enough of what their magic ingredients are to keep their fans on board, but also to bring in new fans as well as lapsed fans.
Oh, it was very impressive for Pulp to have achieved the number one slot in some of the magazines, the Critics' Choice for Album of the Year, and Suede as well. It certainly doesn't happen very often where bands will come back after many. Was it 24 years in the case of Pulp?
Oh,
Suede,
yeah.
of course, have been going. They've kept things chugging on quite nicely, and they've managed to keep a lot of their fan base and bring on new people on board, which is the holy grail for bands. But
Well,
Geese
when you look
was a bolt from the blue, but I think it feels like a comfortable. It feels like a little bit like when I used to work at Uncut and we made the Flaming Lips album of the year with the Soft Bulletin. It just feels like one of those. It feels right. Even if you've been listening to music for a long time, there'll be some of that shock of the new, but there'll be some kind of elements where you recollect. Oh right, that comes from there. Yeah, that suits my record collection.
Well, in terms of, I mean, what's interesting, you got Geese there and Cameron Winter in there, but also the top 10. So we've got Pulp, Suede, Sparks with their 319th album, the Waterboys, Robert Plant, Saint Etienne. These are seasoned cats coming back with really great albums. So the new model of where a lot of these artists tour enough, they do the merch stuff. They're not beholden to the company like they might have been in the 70s or 80s, and they're out there having a great time.
There are ways to sustain a career. Although sad to see with their album from 2025, sad to see Saint Etienne bowing out and deciding that this was going to be their last album and that their forthcoming tour will be their last. I mean, they may come back.
I'm sure they might, but I mean, I think there's a nobility in that, in the terms of we're all getting older. I know we will sort of end up somewhere mired in this conversation, but we're all getting older, and to sort of leave nice and clean on a high is a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it's not quite the jam bowing out at the age of 24, but there is something. If you look at Saint Etienne's collective, their oeuvre is pretty unblemished, isn't it? Pretty unimpeachable. It really is one of the great modern collection. What's the word I'm looking for?
Catalogue.
Yeah, one of the great
Canons.
one of the great modern canons.
Frank Cannon, always.
The Saint Etienne stuff. And all for hardcore collectors, didn't they put out lots of Christmas releases?
Oh, they've done all that. Well, of course, if you've got Bob Stanley on board, you've got an inbuilt, that he is loved by so many people, and he knows innately, as being a collector himself, what collectors want. And
one of the few. Well, Bob Geldof being another, a journalist turned artiste.
Yes, and Chrissie Hynde, of course, as well.
Chrissie Hynde, Neil Tennant, Morrissey.
I
don't know. It's never clear.
Morrissey.
Morrissey. Whatever happened to him? But
he's
not
playing
clear.
the O2 next year, I know.
Oh, he's playing the O2 next year. Okay.
He still plays. He sells out all these stadiums. It's just no one will release anything by him. But
no. Well, maybe he'll going to talk to us around the dates and try and explain.
His record collection, all those George Formby 10 inches. Alma Cogan records.
Alma Cogan.
Alma.
Yeah.
While we're speaking about Alma Cogan, what fascinating in the From the Vaults 25, Marianne Faithfull, who was once seen as a contemporary of of Alma Cogan. Lovely to see her Cast Your Fate to the Wind, the complete UK recordings in there, the Decca stuff. That's a lovely little box set nestling in there. And also from around the same time, the Beatles were a band, and John Lennon, of course, was very friendly. They all were with Alma because she had those fabulous parties in Kensington High Street in the mansion blocks above, I think it's Screwfix or somewhere like that now.
Is that right?
It's not the Screw, it's further down. It's nearer the tube station, but there is a blue plaque up for her. But I mean, it's amazing when you see that sort of history. And also, Nick Drake, that Making of 5 Years Left box set just showed that there are still things you can do with an artist, where the well has sort of been seen to run dry. And I mean, this has had a sort of phenomenal response. I mean, it's been Grammy nominated. And it's, this tape that he gave to a mate that, and you actually hear Nick Drake talking on it, which is something people, have never heard before.
Well, that's right. Because when we 2 years ago, we did a cover story on Syd Barrett and Nick Drake and their respective 1974s, and we had a sidebar stroke panel written by one of our writers who reminisced about the day, Rob Chapman, that's right, he reminisced about the day that he got picked up while hitchhiking by somebody who, it occurred later on, was Nick Drake.
I know.
And it's just imagining the conversation. It's like the AI where you can take a photo now and you press a button and it imagines a 10 seconds time space where the photo comes alive and the characters start moving around and talking to each other. It's a bit like that.
So weird when you see that.
Yeah.
It's the first time you then get to know what they look like, but when you first see them, it's like.
Well, you can't imagine them. You can only imagine them being statuesque. Literally, they're caught forevermore in those iconic moments. Horribly overused phrase, but the scene where they walk past in a blur and Drake's leaning against the wall. Well, you can't imagine what happened 1 second before that frame, or 1 second. Well, now you can, because through the wonders of AI, you can envision a past and future where that place, that single second is put into a kind of a larger context.
Oh, definitely. Well, the one for me, and I mean, I don't mean to bring levity to the situation, but Darts, who I adore. Oh, but someone
that's fantastic. From Drake to Darts in one leap.
But someone has done an AI on their album cover. So that fabulous one, their first album, where they're sitting on the waltzer, which actually is on sea. They've got them all jumping off the waltzer and and waving, and it's quite heartwarming. But yes. I mean, I would probably put "Come Back, My Love" somewhere above Riverman, but hey, that's just me.
Nice to see a bit more love for Laura Nyro. She's got a box set, a collection, 66 to 95. That came out in 2025. That's a great one.
Lovely to see Peter Hamill down there. Number 12, brilliant set.
Talking Heads, more songs about buildings and food. The Super Deluxe edition. Not sure about the version that they included of Stay Hungry. That's one of my favourites. But lovely, after 40 years, to hear a song, not afresh, because I've never heard that version before, and challenges you to assess what was great about the original and what were the things that went into putting it together and whether it was possible to beat that moment.
Oh, very much so. And I Talking Heads, it's amazing how groups suddenly unlock their catalogues. There was this Black Friday record store day which just passed us, and obviously it's a big record store day coming up this year, but or next year. But there was a Talking Heads demos and all their early recordings on this wonderful LP and 7-inch vinyl set, clear vinyl. Ooh, very beautiful, but also nearly 50 quid from Rough Trade, and it's like, and other shops as well. I mean, that's not just in the price; that's the price set. And I appreciate these things cost money to make, but it's like maybe I'll hold on that. I mean, it's that thing of buying and playing. I buy stuff to play. I'm not a dealer in that sense.
It is interesting because I remember a lunch I had with a record label, and they told me the exact figure that they would have to sell to break even, or to, you know, yeah.
Oh, and I think the thing is, it's really important. It's great that the stuff's out there because all you hear is, "When's this coming out? When's this coming out?" You know, and you hear it now. I mean, I gave the Beatles anthology 4 stars last month, and I think it does the best with what it can because you got by its very nature, anything like that will always be a mixed bag of varied material. But I think it's brilliant. And then you got, well, where's Carnival of Light TM, the one that everyone asked for? But the thing is, when you hear it, it'll be like, well, we hadn't heard "Leave My Kitten Alone" or something, or we haven't heard "What's the New Mary Jane" was always the one that if you had it on a bootleg, but what's it like? And then you hear it, it's always like that.
Mm.
And the world continues turning.
One of the ones I'm excited about actually is the Propaganda box, Secret Sense of Rhythm, Secret Sense of Sin. Probably I'm quite alone in that, but they were big at the time.
I think you are. I think there's quite a few.
There's a market, and I wonder whether people are excited by the prospect of brand new original material because some of the members have got back together recently, haven't they? Claudia and Susan, Freitag and Michael Mertens.
I mean, I do think that the Frankie box is incredible as well because the Arista demos, which I'd never heard before.
Yes.
It's sort of, the myth that they couldn't play and Trevor came in and, pulled the whole thing apart and put players on it. Obviously they couldn't play as well as the Blockheads could play or Steve.
But it's weird, isn't it? Because it was there right before our very eyes. There was that tube performance with the leather pets. They were wearing all the leather gear, and the Marco II's bass line was cosmic. How much better did he need to get? And in fact, in many ways, that original version, I hate it when people say that, I prefer the original version. No, how can you prefer the original? It's the beautified, extravagant, transmogrified version. But no, in this instance, I would love to have heard that release, that original tube rendition of Relax.
Isn't it on there? It's in about disc 93 or something.
I got sent the box by the lovely Julian at the record company. I haven't unleashed it yet. I think, according to our review, it neglected to, I don't know if I'm wrong on this, it neglected to include the Paul Morley interviews with Holly and Paul and the lads in separate, one February Friday, 1 September Monday.
I will quantify the whole set by the things that are missing. And, I hear about people like you. No, well, usually, I mean, there is a reason for that, and it's usually, the artist or the management don't want the track on there, or
I think there's.
And I don't know anything about this particular case, but
Well, it's great if you like Paul Morley interviewing people and then hearing it put to an electronic beat. I just think it's fantastic. It's like dancing to an interview.
It's almost like your ultimate record, isn't it?
Well, it was, and then funnily enough, and this is probably for later on in the podcast, but a couple of weeks ago I went to see Paul Morley talking with Simon Goddard, one of our great writers.
Oh, the Bowie book he's written.
Interviewing each other, and because Simon Goddard has written several Bowie books, and Paul Morley's written his second Bowie book, which he intimates that maybe the second in a triptych with a third to follow. But anyway, I hot-footed it down to Nunhead in South London to watch that going on. And it's great. I love it. I love people talking about pop music. What else is there?
I couldn't agree more. I bet there was a bit of friction from all the chin stroking.
It was surprisingly good. It made me think, actually, I'm probably not as alone as I think. There are other people that love to expose themselves to this.
Yes.
This kind of conversation.
You and the 14 others exposing yourself in South London. No, I think I completely agree. And I think when you get the chemistry between two, certainly on stage, the role of the interviewer, is not just, is to let their subject speak. I know this sounds really obvious and ask some beautiful open questions and ride with some tangents. But I think people think, oh yeah, it's really easy. I'm just going to go up and ask, what about their career is. And some people can just talk. But when you get to really good match subjects, and of course, because of that, because they're both Bowie authors, I bet it was like a good tennis match or something.
Yeah, well, it was in places, but actually, as you alluded to there, sometimes the best interviews are where the journalist just tees up the artist with a couple of words. Whenever they present rock journalism on television or in film, Almost Famous, for example, they make the journalist very central to the situation, and there's a lot of speaking from them. Well, of course, they're lead characters in the drama, but that's not what it's like. If you want to do it properly, you're barely there. You're like an invisible character in the corner of the room, just offering the odd little teed up phrase just to get them to and then they, if it's a good interview, you'll say barely nothing and they'll say loads, and you just have to sort of tap them on the
Well,
shoulder
you're
occasionally.
enabling that person to tell their story, and then when you're being interviewed, you get your chance.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. So,
one thing I would say just add is
go on.
if we'd been a bit later with it, the new edition has this fabulous 2-page review of Pink Floyd's "Wish You Were Here" 50, and I say it's a fabulous review not just because I wrote it, but it genuinely is a 5-star album. And to me, it was the same with Pompeii earlier this year. Shows that a group who have been, you'd think have been done to death, and everything's there. There are new things here, and the cleaning up of the bootleg tape from a '75 LA concert by Stephen Wilson has been quite incredible, because I think it's basically just off a TDK, and obviously you're not listening to Dire Straits Brothers in Arms or a demonstration record, Steely Dan Gaucho, but it's really, really surprisingly good, because often you listen to bootlegs and you think, oh well, this is great, I'm getting a flavour for it, but it doesn't hit the turntable very often. Whereas this, actually, it stands up very, very well. So it's a really, I couldn't recommend it enough.
And I guess confirming Pink Floyd's status in the annals of great bands who have two phases. See also Joy Division in your order,
Well,
Human League and Heaven 17.
I would say 3 phases with the Pink Floyd, as people used to call them, because you got Sid, and then you got Rog and Dave, and then Dave alone.
Do you count that? I count that as an epilogue.
Yeah, no, I mean I count that as that next phase, because obviously if Pink Floyd, I'm putting the inverted commas, were to reunite, which there's only two of them now, without Waters, they would include songs right from the whole can. You see Gilmore Live, and like High Hopes and Sorrow have the same weight as Time or On the Run or Breathe or something. Whereas Waters, obviously, it's all the very Waters-centric tracks. So I think there's 3 eras, but I mean, what is amazing is just the appetite for them. There is still, it's like passed down the Floyd man. In a way, I think the Beatles, it's not happening quite as much with. I mean, obviously, everyone loves the Beatles, and there's a historical significance that people enjoy and relish with the Beatles. But I think it's like people listen to "Wish You Were Here" and "Dark Side" because it's almost some sort of rite of passage when you're a teenager to get Cosmic Man.
Absolutely. That certainly happened for me.
It's a bit like Try the
76.
Floyd. It's a saucer full of secrets. And that whole, just say it again, Wish You Were Here was all about it, but to mythologize themselves when it was only like 6 or 7 years before. Same with Elton John writing Captain Fantastic. I think I may have said this on it before, but, in one sense, it's like the absolute audacity.
I love it. That's the mark of a truly great band. The Walrus was Paul. Bands that comment on their own history.
Yeah.
And even, to an extent when Phil Oakey, so this is Phil talking, bands that speak, that almost enter into their own mythology.
Oh, no, absolutely. But David Bowie, what did I try and do? They wait for me in hallways. I don't know. I said I don't know any hallways.
Oh, yeah, meet David Bowie and Iggy Pop, Trans-Europe Express.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
It's
so there's Martin Fry, of course.
The whole alphabet. So I mean, again, they were listening to a lot of those records because soul, came from soul, name checking and things like that. And I think it's tremendous records that name check others. One thing I did learn this weekend, I was reading that a group I love, and they're in the blur behind me, was the Beta Band, who I saw live on their reunion tour, and I love. They did a record called Dry the Rain, which is sort of like their debut record and the benchmark record, and mentioned by Jack Black, I believe, in High Fidelity. And there's a lyric in there, which is again a reference to another band, "Moths in the corner of the room." I always thought it was moths in the corner of the room.
Oh, right, okay.
It was like an old flat or something. But Steve Mason, I read that they had a copy of a Mott the Hoople album, was in the corner, and they were always going to play it, but they never did. So I just love the fact that the Beta Band name checked Mott the Hoople.
Fantastic. Well,
I would, wouldn't I?
And then you've got Clockwork Orange, where Heaven 17 makes a cameo appearance. Pop and the movies.
Well, what? Because they're in the chart, and also Sparks are in the chart as well, aren't they?
Are they?
Yes,
Ah,
but I
okay.
don't think they knew that. I think it was but yeah, the Sparks are there, and of course, Corova became a record label, which was obviously very, um, you know,
Corova, yes. Was
obvious.
that what Echo and the Bunny Band? Weren't they
It
on that?
was. Oh, I think it was. Wasn't it Drummond's label? Wasn't that an
Drummond,
early?
yes.
Because you had Laurie and the Chameleons was on that. Oh,
Lauren. It's not all albums, I should, or listy features, I should say, in this edition of Record Collector.
thanks for bringing it back round.
There's a great. Well, I need to ask you about Bob in a minute, but there's a great series of features. There's a lovely one on Danny Thompson, who recently passed. It's a lost interview with him from 2010. Very interesting stuff indeed. First feature I can imagine seeing, remember seeing in a music magazine on Monochrome Set,
Mm.
a great post-punk band. Happy Mondays are interviewed with Bez and Sean. That's good fun. Virgin Prunes, another group that I don't think I've ever seen them written about in one of the mainstream rock monthlies. Great interview with Al Jardine of the Beach Boys,
Yeah, that is really.
where the author argues very persuasively for the excellence of the post-Brian material, the post-Brian compositions in the Beach Boys. Chris Need's great piece on 80s disco stroke boogie, and Eater get written about the bona fide young punks
Yeah,
of the 1976 era. They were about 15 to 17 at the time, or 13 to 15 at the time.
yeah, a degenerate, of course. I love the fact that if you were in really early in punk, where everyone else copied it, you were able to get to the Roxy because they needed bands. And they're on that first Roxy compilation, where of course the Pistols aren't. And it was very sniffed at when that came out. It was like, plastic punks.
Everyone apart from Johnny Rotten was a plastic punk.
Yeah,
I can't think of it.
I love Plastic Soul. I'm quite happy.
Plastic
Plastic
Soul's
More.
great.
I like to think myself as a sustainable plastic.
I love inauthentic music. I mean, that's a whole conversation that we probably haven't got time for today. But I was going to ask you about, and it's staring us in the face literally. It's Bob Geldof on the cover saying, "Give
Yeah,
us your effing magazine." But you spent a couple of weeks with Bob so that he would get to the point where he retold his life and time, his career, and his story via his record collection. So you went down to his house in Faversham.
yeah. No, I went down with Bob and spent the day with him, which was lovely, and with Ted, who we both know he's Ted Bob's PR, but a PR in the old school sense, very sort of gentle and very sort of in the background, but he took loads of pictures. We had a fab day out, and Bob's collection is fascinating, and it's like I think I say in the feature, his house and his collection are like his head. It's like one of those phrenology heads, just full of all these different ideas and jumble and everything going on. And the way when you're with him that he can go from talking about, with obviously great authority, the inner workings of the political system in the Sudan, and then to suddenly talk about Joey Ramone's trousers, or the latest band or something like that. It's quite amazing. His love for the feel goods. I mean, good lord, his love for the feel goods, which I always keep a copy of a feel goods very nearby, down by the jetty there. It is enormous. But what surprised me, things like Tangerine Dream and Can were on his radar, and that classic sort of early punk thing of loving reggae. Because that's what was heard a lot.
Mm.
Being so excited by the Ramones, not a fan of prog, but loving Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon. But just the way that the Ramones came along, he loved Dr. Feelgood, he loved the old blues. And what you read in the feature, which is quite like, 8-9 pages in the end, was that and I said this before, but the importance of your local record shop.
Yeah, because you go and visit his local record shop, don't you?
Well, we do on the day. We went to a couple of his record shops, a couple of the record shops in Faversham. But going back to when he was a kid in Dunleary, there was the one record shop with the sort of the wise men running it who would say, yeah, this is, Lightning Hopkins, this is Bill Brunsey, try this. And like when the Stones were out, they were saying, well, these are their references and stuff like that. And all that stuff, certainly to me, I would listen. You know, the advice of the record shop person was as equal to what, you know, Charlie Murray was saying in NME, or later Paul Lester was saying in Melody.
Well, certainly they were curated, weren't they? Record shop. I mean, some of the record shops I went to in the 70s. Yeah, you're right. They shaped my record collection.
Yeah. Well, you know, you heard things, and there was nothing like how grown up you felt when you sort of, you know, if your taste, you almost got the nod from the man behind the counter. And I was reading something, and I can't remember it was something that came up on socials about someone who you wouldn't quite expect getting into Deep Purple.
Right.
I'll have to find out who it was, but it was, you know, it was someone you wouldn't expect, and he gathered up the courage to go into his local record shop, and he bought Deep Purple in rock. You know, put it over the counter, and this sort of, you know, the towering figure behind the counter looked down at it and just went to him and said, "That is a classic rocker." And he, you know, just sort of went out thinking, you know.
Well, that was one of the delights, you know, in the early punk movement, discovering how broad Johnny Rotten's record collection was.
Cool.
But also discovering that people like Paul Morley, you know, all the spiky top people, they were all long hairs 5 years before. Captain Sensible, you know, they all had a metal prehistory or a prog prehistory.
Yeah,
they would have, not just the cool krautrock stuff, they would have been listening to you know, Genesis.
But the thing is, they probably wouldn't have been listening to the cool krautrock stuff. Some of them would have been, but they far more would have been listening to Genesis. And
yes, because just simple availability. Well, the Faust record would have been, because they did that cheap version, didn't they?
Well, no, Virgin did a lot to bring that sort of stuff into the mainstream. But I mean, I think you know, I'm currently, for the next issue, they're bringing out yet another version of Tales from Topographic Ocean.
Yes, they are.
And it's a record I've always struggled with because I like the earlier, funnier stuff.
Yeah,
I know, you know, we've had the conversation before, but you just listen to the phenomenal ambition. Again, we've said this. How do you go from Please Please Me, 10 years later, people are doing sidelong tracks?
Yes,
where it's just like, you know, where are you going here? But like, yes, you know, we mustn't forget Keith Levine was Steve Howe's guitar roadie.
yeah.
So it's like, you know, there was, whether you liked it or not, those records would have been had. They were, or at least had an awareness of them. And it's all right. We were all listening to, you know, the first Velvet's album. I'm sorry, you weren't.
And it works the other way. I don't know, we might have said this last week, but a lot of the prog rockers then got involved in the new pop scene of the early 80s. Steve Howe's on the Frankie album.
Absolutely.
And actually, Forever Together on side 2 of Lexicon, that's a prog track, isn't it? ABC?
Of course it is. Well, of course it is. And I mean, what you heard was, you know, post-punk TM gave permission. I mean, you listen to Magazine album, the first Magazine album, and it's a bit like, this is not far off.
But all the keyboard punks like Wire, Banshees, they were all kind of mired a little, to a certain extent, in prog.
And I've been enjoying myself so much today. I forgot to say, please give us a like and subscribe. This is the 11th Needlepoint podcast. We're recordcollectormag.com. Follow us, because there are untold riches in what we do.
And we should probably mention about not just an edition every month, or 13 a year, of Record Collector, but we do a monthly special.
We do.
On a single artist. And currently we have out, it'd be nice to have
David Bowie, second part of the
David Bowie, parts 1 and 2 of his career, assessed brilliantly by Jason Draper.
T-Rex. Gary Numan was not that far away.
The Stones ones, Stones of the 60s and Stones of the 70s.
And I've just taken a break out of my very busy schedule because George Harrison, which I'm editing, is going to print on Thursday.
Because you did John Lennon last Christmas, didn't you?
I did John and Yoko last Christmas. Look, there's one here I prepared earlier. And the Christmas before that, I did McCartney.
So I can't imagine what you're doing next Christmas.
I know. Pete Best. No, it's fascinating. And George is you know, such a loved character. And what is fascinating about him, he's just so unvarnished. You know, there was an interview I was listening to. You listen to his interviews, and he just doesn't care.
You can't imagine it now. Yeah, he's on Dick Clark's. Yeah, no, not Dick Clark's bandstand. No, who's the American interviewer with the blonde hair?
Yeah, I know who you mean.
And it is almost astonishingly kind of forthright, and who cares who's listening to this.
No, absolutely, and his dislike of the trappings of fame. It's fascinating when you look at the forum, and I've been, anthologies back out, and I started watching it again last night, the first episode, and you've got, Macca was born to please. He's a great making sure everyone's all right. Lennon using his platform to just show off, basically, and do whatever he wants to do. Ringo being just so delighted to be there, and in being that, becoming almost like the Beatles' USP. I often think if they didn't have Ringo, they wouldn't be the Beatles as we know.
Well, going all the way back to Nick Cohen's What Baloo Bop, that book, an incredible book that came out in the 70s. Nick Cohen always said, Ringo was in America, Ringo was the one.
You think of that. I wrote it in my review, but Morecambe and Wise, when they had the Beatles on the show, and Eric appears and he's looking for "Hello, Bongo."
That's a bit like in Larry Sanders' show where they have Wu-Tang Clan on. He says, "Which one's dirty old bitch?"
But the thing is, if it had just been, and it's Pete on drums, of course they would have been popular, but it would have been okay. Here's another group, but
it's just not the same. It's not the
George
same.
And all that, just completely. So what? You got what you got, and fascinating character. So that's coming out soon. Please have a look at our website for all our range of phenomenal things. And speaking of phenomenal things, Paul, tell me, what have you been up to since we last spoke?
Well, apart from slapping all the way to Nunhead to watch Simon Goddard interview Paul Morley about the Bowie book, I think I've been to a gig in the last couple of weeks, but I've been working very hard on, because to us, it's Christmas outside for you gentlefolk of Britain, but to us, we've got one foot in the mixing metaphors terribly here, but we've got one foot in the spring. It may be winter outside, but in our hearts, it's spring, because we're working on the February issue's pretty much going to be done by Christmas, and then we'll be thinking about April and March.
Yep. Looking at January's going week after next.
Well, January is an interesting one because we've got a subculture, a British youth subculture from the late 70s, early 80s under inspection. The mod revival of the late, not mod, we love mod, everyone loves mod, but the mod revival, well, apparently it's still going on. There are still bands like Secret Affair, Lambrettas, The Chords, there's still Purple Hearts, still around and about, gigging, releasing records. So we've investigated that. A great piece from Lois Wilson. She's spoken to a lot of the people that were there in 79, 80 and who are still out there doing it. And then, I shouldn't give away the game too much, but we've got very interesting features coming up on artists who have passed over the last 10 years, and we've inspected their legacy and their catalogues, and try to ask the question: what happens to a major figure like a Prince or a Bowie in terms of their record collection, their catalogue, and the reissues that come out very, very frequently? What's the quality like, and how does it add or detract from their collections over the years? So we've got that. Those are coming up in the first few months, and we may be taking a serious look at Record Store Day, because why wouldn't we, being the organ of choice for the vinyl resurgence?
Exactly. So plenty of things on our horizon, but you've done a very good job in diverting away from what Paul Lester, the man, has been enjoying. Just work.
Yeah, trying to think of anything non-work related. Well, what's today? It's Monday, isn't it? It's a Tuesday. I'm trying to think what I've been invited to this week. I know I got an invite to go and see Geeks. I think they're on tonight, but I've got too much going on. What about you? What have you been up to?
Well, my dear wife has been very poorly. She's had really bad shingles, so most of my social whirl and presenting and things like that have been curtailed because I've been here at home looking after her, and I wouldn't wish shingles. If anyone of our listeners and watchers have had shingles or haven't had it, be careful. Be careful out there. But I did manage to see, in fact, the day she fell ill with it, we were watching public service broadcasting at the Barbican. They did a fabulous afternoon show with the orchestra, and tremendous fun. That's exactly what the audience were doing in appreciation, barking their delight. And then last week at our local venue, Gary Numan was down doing the Telecon album. and he was absolutely brilliant.
Really?
I mean, just the power in his band and him now. I mean, I've seen him several times, but you sort of forget every time you see Gary Numan. There's still that mental thing that you're going to see that man, just standing there looking uncomfortable and everything.
Yeah.
And he comes and he's doing the full metal thing. He's banging his head. He's throwing himself
Fantastic.
around, and you just think, crikey! And his guitarist and his bassist. I think his guitarist might be called Steve Allen or something. But he's this bald-headed fellow, and he's got a line of makeup down here. And him and his mate are both wearing long dresses, and they sort of move around the stage. And the guitarist has this thing where he just makes sort of little signs to the audience. And I don't know if they're to be. I'm not that much of a fan to know if that all means something, but it's entirely unnerving.
Well, probably for humanoids, there's great meaning in that configuration of marks on his face, because if ever an artist was taken seriously, it's Gary Numan, which is amazing considering at the time he was a figure of fun largely in the media, a bit like Freddie Mercury. A lot of the 70s artists were.
Oh no, definitely. And what was fascinating is you had half of the audience who were the Newman who'd come out, following on the tour. And that there is a thing with Southend that people like a good time, and you get the I love a bit of Gary Numan, I'll come along and see him. And what was amazing, he didn't do Cars and he didn't do Our Friends Electric.
Wow!
So he played
Brave.
Telecon as a block, and then ended the concurrent singles. I Die, You Die, They Crawl Out, and then We Are Glass.
Yes.
And then went off and came back with 3 from the first album, the very first. And then ended with Down in the Park. So you had a sort of semi-greatest hit, but not, the greatest hits.
Wonder what possessed him to leave out the 2 big ones.
Well, I suppose because he's probably, played them at every single show he's ever done to that point. And
was there any sort of shouting out complaints?
You could sort of see there was, some people were saying some people were a bit aggy because, he didn't play the hits. But I mean, he did. He played, I think there were 3, or certainly 2 top 10 singles in the Telecon. And the band was so good they made the Dole track sound fascinating. Really,
it's amazing how he's managed to sustain the career well beyond the initial point of impact.
Yeah, well, and of course, you remember how he couldn't get arrested after he fought the Berserk.
Yes.
I mean, once he went blue and signed to PRT, I mean, it was just like, right.
Albums with members of Shack Attack, but
although no, that's a fine.
We like that one, don't we?
Yeah, we like that, and of course he signed Caroline Munro. Lest we forget.
Caroline Munro.
As in the Bond girl, Hammer girl.
Oh, okay.
Queen of Talking Pictures TV doing the Cellar on Friday. And someone I saw at the film, I went to the Dark Fest, a day festival in the Genesis Cinema in London.
Oh, right.
Mile End, around the Dark Side magazine, which I love. It's a sort of classic horror mag.
Oh, okay.
And all the cats were there. I met Vincent Price's sister. And that was like his daughter,
Really?
Victoria.
Was Annette Andre there? You'd imagine she would have been. Annette Andre from The Prisoner. I was talking with my...
No. Didn't Annette Andre leave us recently?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Annette Andre was in Randall Hopkirk, wasn't she?
She was in Randall Hopkirk. I was talking about this with my son only the other day about who from the original Prisoner is still alive. I know Darren Nesbitt is.
Yes,
I think
probably about it.
The character who played Potter, who has his shoes shined, or he does the shining of the shoes in the Girl Who Was Death episode. I think he died recently.
Annette Andre is still alive.
Fantastic.
It was Alexandra Bastido that is no longer with us.
Alexandra Bastido. She was the
champion.
Not champions, not the Avengers, but
the first famous person I ever met, Alexandra Bastido.
How did that come to pass?
I'll tell you what, I could do that thing. I can drop in a picture of me and Alexandra Bastido. Well, I can, wait, you'll see it now.
All right.
But no, we had I've just realised like Milhouse from The Simpsons, like this.
Good work.
Well, it's a good or bad thing. Yes. Anyway, she came to our local. In fact, the same venue I saw Gary Numan in the other night, who my wife works for. I mean, everything happens in that venue.
Yeah.
He came to do Southend had its own version of the Ideal Home Show back in the 70s, and these celebs. They were shoved some dosh to come and meet and grip and grin around all the stalls, and it was like knitting machines and macrame and things like that. And I went up and asked for her autograph, and someone took a picture of it, like the official photographer.
Yeah.
And my mum and dad bought it, and I have it Me and Alexandra Bastido.
Well, she was quite something.
I still never met anyone like her. I don't think I have since, actually.
Really?
Or no, until I met you. I think we've...
Well, how long have we been talking on this particular episode?
About 56 minutes, which I think is enough to...
That's probably enough for anybody.
Everybody.
It's been very... It's been very good, and all we can do is remind people to go and buy this terrific issue of Record Collector with my successor, Bob Geldof. Done a fabulous job.
I don't think he has time to do it on a regular basis. You're all right.
No, he's done very well lately. He's been very much the man in demand, isn't he? He's won several awards, I think.
He won the Rolling Stone sort of icon thing. I think the whole, that play in London's been receiving rave reviews. The tour, I mean, the tour was absolutely astonishing because he is such a performer, and obviously we know that, but I mean, he was just, his command of as a frontman, he is as good as any of them. His command of the audience. You don't call King Rat for nothing.
Right. Well, he certainly, brings the page alive.
He brings the page alive, and now we must say, we must go and bring our pages alive for our respective magazines.
Some of us have got a rock magazine to put out. Well, not just rock, obviously.
It's not indeed. But I suppose we'll be taking a break because we're not going to come together at, on the December the 27th when the next issue comes out.
I guess not. Well, you've got my number.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll see you before then.
I'll see you before then. When are you next? Are you in this week?
I think we should not have that. I think
Let's not have this conversation.
It is out. We've still been recording.
Oh, I see. I had no idea.
Right, and just cut that bit out. We'll just...
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you very much for listening to Needlepoint. My name is Daryl Easlea.
And I'm Paul Lester. Have a great holiday if we don't speak to each other before then, and Happy New Year. It will be much more needlepointy than New Year.
Thank you for supporting us this year so far. It's been a great first year. We really love it. Don't forget to do all the numbers, follow us, love us, and we wish you a very happy festive season.
Take care.
Needlepoint, the Record Collector podcast with Paul Lester and Daryl Easlea.